Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Barron, your host, and welcome to my podcast, That's Life, I Swear. My guest today is Tracy Pullman. Tracy will be sharing her journey that many of you have confronted. It's the journey of what happens when the career you've built suddenly disappears, and you're left staring at a blank page with no roadmap, no safety net, and no choice but to reinvent yourself. After being laid off, Tracy found herself piecing together freelance projects while still holding on to the idea of traditional employment. But what started as a bridge between jobs soon became a bold transformational leap into entrepreneurship. Now, Tracy will share the days of uncertainty, such as landing her first client in an industry she knew nothing about, dealing with imposter syndrome, navigating the mental health challenges that come with building something from scratch. She shares how crafting a 90-day outreach plan changed everything for her, what she learned about treating herself as her own client, and why freelancing gave her a sense of control and security she never found in corporate life. This isn't just a story about starting a business. It's a story about resilience, reinvention, and the courage it takes to bet on yourself, especially when the world tells you to play it safe. Now, if some of you out there have been where Tracy is, or maybe have to confront it one day, then this conversation is for you. This discussion is honest, uplifting, and packed with wisdom for anyone standing at the crossroads in their career. Please join me as I have my conversation with Tracy Pullman. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rick. What a great intro. I really appreciate it.
No worries. I think from what we had discussed earlier, I think as we talk today, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are going to say, yep, I've been there, and oh gosh, is this what I'm going to have to face when it does hit me? Because I think for the most cases, some people realize they're entering a new world that, you have a job today and then you lose it tomorrow. And it's like, you're really going to have to hustle now to get back into the race. So if you could, though, for the audience, give us kind of a brief overview of who you are, how you got into high tech, and where you are today.
Yeah, so my name's Tracy Pullman. I live in San Jose, California. I have 2 teenage boys and 2 dogs, and I'm originally from Chicago. I moved out here to California right after college. I had picked up some web development skills when I was in college as a side hustle. And when I came out here, those skills were really needed. And I got a job as a contractor, as a web developer at Apple. And that from there, web development became web marketing. And then that became broader kind of digital marketing. And from there, B2B marketing. And that's how I kind of got into my career. I was an econ major at University of Illinois. So not exactly the path I thought I was headed.
Now, when we first spoke, you talked about that day that you got laid off. What went through your mind when you realized that this time it's going to be tough to kind of get back in the race, or at least it wasn't going to be straightforward, if that's a better way to put it?
Yeah, it definitely did not sink in initially. I got laid off 2 years ago, I think to the day. But it did not sink in initially because I didn't know how bad the market was yet. You had heard about layoffs and things like that. But I had never really encountered having a hard time finding a job. So probably I would say I got laid off January 2024. By March, it was pretty apparent that this was going to take a while. And so I was preparing myself for that. And in that preparing, I decided to just kind of spin up a website and put myself out there to do some project-based work. And my thinking at the time, I did not know I was really starting my own business and that was the path I was headed. But my thinking at the time was just, let me just do some project work on the side while I'm looking for this full-time work. And that was the extent of my thinking. So I just put it out there, posted it on LinkedIn, probably messaged 15, 20 people. And that was pretty much it. And I didn't get any real traction until a couple months after that, in May of 2024.
Hmm. So when you started your journey, though, to look for that next job, excuse me, um, did it strike you as like, why is this taking so long? I mean, usually I can just get this job, okay, maybe 2, 3 months tops. But now it's going much further than I would have anticipated. What went through your mind during those moments?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I had been laid off. I think that was 2017, something like that. And it was right after Thanksgiving and not the greatest time to be laid off right between the holidays. And it took me a solid 3 months to land a job. And I remember at the time that felt like forever. And I was getting a little worried about, cash flow and things like that. Um, but in hindsight, it was like, that was pretty quick, actually.
Yeah.
So I think that's why, when March rolled around, I was realizing, okay, you can just tell by, one, you're not getting recruiters reaching out to you like I had 3, 4 years prior to that. Um, you were getting very little bites. I was probably getting one bite a month kind of thing. So it was pretty few and far between.
Wow, that had to have been hard. I was very curious, though, when we first started to chat about having this conversation. I love the title of what you call your organization, Giddy Up Marketing. How did that come about?
I don't know. I think I just, I think I was just thinking off of, level up, let's go, right? Ho- yeah, kickstart, right? And I was thinking around those terminologies and I just really thought about, yeah, let's go. How else do you say let's go? It's like giddy up, and I don't know. I like the little emoji with the cowboy hat. So probably
No,
had something to do
that's
with it.
cool. No, I love that. Now, I noticed when you called about when you first got into your first role with your job being self-employed. It was in cybersecurity, and you said you had no background, but yet you got hired. But then in parallel, you said you felt kind of guilty, imposter syndrome. So there's those two questions, but the person who hired you anyway, why do you think they hired you if they felt like, well, no background, but I'll still hire you?
Yeah, it's interesting. So that first client came through a referral from someone I worked with at a previous job. They had been doing freelance work for this client, and they had taken a full-time job and I think wanted to give this client a soft landing. So I honestly feel like it was timing. They had probably seen my post 2 months prior and they reached out and said, would you be interested? And I said, absolutely. So they made an introduction. And yeah, the CEO, his biggest reservation, which he said, vocally outright, was just that I didn't have any cybersecurity experience. And, there's no denying that. But we agreed to do a pilot project and it was basically a pitch deck that needed complete reworking, storyline, look and feel, layout, all of it. And so uh I worked on that project and I remember thinking while I was doing that, just thinking, having that master imposter syndrome that you mentioned. But I just told myself, just, do your best, put your best foot forward. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, it's okay.
Hmm.
It's great experience, great learning. And so, I took that project through, probably spent about 10 hours on it. And I presented to him and he really liked it. And so he took a chance on me at that point because he saw that, I could pick it up, learn it, tackle it, and move forward. And I think a lot of us, I mean, whenever you move into a new industry, I can only speak from the marketing standpoint, but you do have to learn a new product, possibly a new industry as well. And yes, that's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's just part of what we do as marketers is learn the
Sure.
space, learn the audience, learn the industry, learn the market, learn, the buying signals, all those types of things, right? To be successful.
So to a certain degree, you already had the skill sets. It was just a different, as you said, product.
Exactly.
So I think to that end, it was quite the advantage on your side that you had that. So I guess that's a good learning point for anyone who's out there that, that if they have an opportunity to take on something, even though they think they don't know it, take a stab at it. You never know, because it could be something that you find, oh, wow, they're going to give me a pilot program. They like me. But you know what? I really like this type of role. I really like this environment. I like this topic. I like this product. And you are then surprised to know that had I not taken this chance, I'd still be looking. So I think, like, to your point, I think you just gotta, throw the spaghetti against the refrigerator and see what sticks.
Totally. Totally.
Uh, Now, how did I know from looking at your LinkedIn account, I see where you do a lot of interfacing with people. You've had opportunities to be on the stage, so to speak, I guess, to give presentations with other fellow people in marketing. Uh, did you just take that on your own to help, like, okay, let's see if I can get my name and voice recognized throughout the industry, so to speak, so that way they can say, hey, I've heard about Tracy. Oh, yeah, there she is right there. And I like what I'm hearing, what she's posting. Was that something that you took on as the means to help you get to where you are today and maybe beyond?
Yeah. So my first year in business, I mentioned how that I got the first client. And the next two clients I got were also in the cyber security space, and they were referrals from the first. So I would say my first year in business, all my clients basically fell in my lap. I didn't work very hard to get them. And so it wasn't until actually 2025, my second year in business, that um, I had to really dig deep and ask myself, if I had been really treating myself as my own client. And the answer was I hadn't been, because I had been just relying on these great opportunities just kind of fall in my lap. So once I really committed to um, driving new business and really focusing on this business and trying to grow it, which meant I also decided not to continue looking for full-time work. I was doing things like doing outreach to my network, trying to get out there and network with other people, starting to participate in events locally and nationally, and having a voice for myself and putting content out there, and trying to spread the word about what I was doing and the knowledge I have. And so, when I think about treating myself like my own client and what I do for my clients is, one of the big levers for lead generation is around events, is around creating content. And so, I knew that I was as uncomfortable as it was for me to do these things, including public speaking. It's like, I'm going to have to do this if I want to drive, new leads and new business. And so the very first thing I did was I had attended this webinar by another fractional CMO who basically pulled the covers back on her business. It was super, super transparent. And most people on there were also fractional CMOs or aspiring, fractional marketers. And so, I mean, she really pulled the covers back and people appreciated it. It was very educational. She wasn't selling anything to any of us. She was just being in service to the community. And I was so inspired by this webinar that I decided to host my own. And I did, I ended up calling it Going Out on My Own. And I think I had like 50 people register for it and about 25, 30 people show up, which I thought was pretty great for my first webinar. And yeah, I did exactly that. I pulled back the covers. I shared all about my journey. And just like the other person's webinar I attended, there was no sales pitch in there. It was really this selfish endeavor of me wanting to practice public speaking. And to speak about my own journey is the most comfortable thing for me to speak on. So it seemed like the easiest way to segue into that. The second opportunity I got was this local event here in the Bay Area called Bay Area Connections. And I learned about it through one of my networking groups. And I went on there to go check it out. And I saw that they were looking for speakers, somebody on a panel and a marketing panel, marketing power panel, they called it. And so, it wasn't a big investment. It was a little bit more than what it would have cost for me to attend the event. And I thought, this is a sign, do it. So I did. Oh man, I was nervous, so nervous. But I sat up there on stage and, that was my first time in person with a microphone in hand. Um, and so, yeah, and now this opportunity came along with you, Rick, and I'm super appreciative, right? So I
Oh,
keep
you're
trying
welcome.
to hone these skills of putting myself out there. So thank you.
No, no worries. Now, I want to go back in the course of what you've been saying. You've been bringing up a word uh, that I think some people hear, but they don't take it to heart: networking. And I would imagine over time you've got to meet a lot of people and people that you're meeting now. What do you find to be the real, I don't know, the gem of not only networking, but how to network? That way, I want people to understand. I mean, at least from what my experience is, that networking was so key for me that what I did was I made a habit of always going back to people I used to work with just to say hi when I was still working, to let them know, hey, I didn't forget about you. It's just thought I'd touch base. Let's have coffee or something. But I think for me, networking is so key. I think some people kind of miss the point today that don't think it's not worth your while. Don't go back to people just when you need them. So how do you look at the world of networking? Because it seems to be working quite well for you.
Yeah, I think, when you're in corporate America, a lot of times you end up getting a little complacent with the networking. Because you socialize with the people you work with, and you kind of don't hit up your network again until, you need to find another job. We're all guilty of that. Um, but yeah, what I've learned, a couple things. To be in conversation, you never know where that conversation is going to lead. Um, and to go into that conversation without expectations, just to come in with curiosity. That's really helped me and I didn't start out that way. When I started networking, there were definitely more expectations in there because I was trying to build this business and I had these goals and whatever. But over time, you just learn to just be there, be present, be in the flow, and be curious. And that's really worked well. But what I have to say is the networking, both, online with networking groups as well as in person, has been so energizing. It is what has lifted me out of some of my darkest days on this journey. It's these new people that, are basically strangers, that I'm meeting that are also on the same path. And we're both open to conversation. We're both open to connection, and we're open to learning from each other. And so when you go into these conversations with that open mind and open heart, you take away something from every conversation you have. I mean, I have. Every single conversation has been beneficial to me. And I'm probably at the point now where I'm in conversation, basically networking, um, you know, 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times a day. I'm having these, what I would call coffee chats. Sometimes they're in person. Most of the time they're online, but I generally have my cup of tea or my coffee next to me. But it's just so energizing. It's really what's keeping me going. And, it sure beats having, when I think back 9 months ago or so, when I was a little bit twiddling my thumbs, with my days. And now I'm very active, and I'm in conversation multiple times a day, having meetings just like this, not always being recorded to publish online, but but it's great. So that's been the real benefit to me,
Sure.
the energy I get from it.
That's great. Uh, and the people that you've met, and you don't have to mention names, has there been a person or a few persons that you built a network and realized, my God, I am so glad I came across these individuals? What would that be? What did you learn from them?
So many, so many. I think right now I am probably in conversation, like I said, it's 2, 3 people a day, and it's
Mhm.
been like that for the past 6 months. So whatever the math is on that, how many people I've met with. But I would say right now there's 5 to 10 people that I have met through these networking interactions, coffee chats, that we are collaborating. I mean, we are might even be more than 10 people, where we're trying to find ways to partner together. We're trying to find ways to build content together. So we're just open to opportunity. And that's really kind of the next phase of what I would call my business is, I was doing the solo thing, the really solo thing that first year, the second year solo thing, but starting to step out. And get out there. And this year, it's all for me, it's about partnering and collaborating. I mean, the only way I see at a certain point to scale your business is to partner and collaborate. So, one of the things that I've been really looking at, because I started out, Giddy Up Marketing offers basically fractional marketing services, consulting services, and advisory services. So, that's kind of the space that I play in. And I was doing, when I first started out, I was doing everything soup to nuts, strategy all the way through to execution because I could, it's like, I can do it. I can get in there and build out a drip campaign or do whatever. But as time went on, that where I want to play is more on the strategy side, on the advisory side, on the leading, coaching, building marketing machines, um, building repeatable processes, and less on the execution side. And so what I'm really looking for, and I found some really great potential partners, is finding somebody who can be that execution arm that I can
Mhm.
partner with and go to market with. So that's what I'm really excited about in 2026.
Good, good. Yeah, brand new year. Now, I called out in the introduction that as freelancing, you've discovered you have a better sense or more of a sense of control and security that you never had in corporate life. What does that mean to you, and what should the audience take from that?
Yeah. So somebody in my network, he's an agency owner. He had said something like this to me in one of my coffee chats, that he found that, being in business for yourself is more secure than being in corporate America. And so that just piqued my curiosity right there. I was like, what's that all about, right? And so he said, if we think about it, we diversify our investments, our financial advisors or whoever we work with, to invest, in stocks or real estate or whatever. We are always making sure we're doing that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. But yet we don't diversify our revenues. A lot of people don't, or especially people that work, in a full-time job in corporate America. And so that was really what he was trying to point out, is when you have multiple clients, you are diversifying those revenues. One client goes away, you're okay, right? You can keep going. And so I really love that perspective. And the other thing that has made it a bit more, secure in a way for me, or in control, I would say more so, is that I did a lot of cutting back on expenses in the last 2 years, year and a half that I've been out on my own. And that's was hard for me. I mean, things like getting rid of my house cleaners, getting rid of my gardeners, changing from a PPO to an HMO, to save myself $800 a month just in that one change. But I had been on a PPO my entire life. So, to think like, wait, I can't pick my own doctor. I can only, that was just a foreign concept to me. So I did make these changes, and those changes elicited more control for me. I mean, all of a sudden, it's like I can make this work. And I don't know, it just gave me more freedom in some way. And so that's been that combination of thinking of just kind of moving away from the traditional mindset of how you work and how you bring in income, but then also what we are in control of in our own
Hmm.
lives. And then the big thing that helped me take those steps was reminding and telling myself this is temporary. If I thought that was forever, that would have been way, way scarier. So to know that one day I will hire back my house cleaners was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. So yes, and one of my goals is to hire back my house cleaners this year for sure.
I'll be back.
Yes,
Well, going through those lifestyle adjustments, though, did you ever think about, you know what? I had to cancel this, and I don't really miss it. Did that ever cross your mind?
for sure. And that is one thing I'll say that, even if tomorrow I started making, the amount of money I was making when I was in corporate America, and I felt like I had that, that safety net and that income, there's a lot of things that um, I would not put back in place. It's like, I've lived without this. I don't need it. So I think all of it was a really good exercise.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, from when you started going through this journey, and it seems like you've got a hold on things right now. Okay, it may not be everything that you wanted, but I think from what happened to where you are now, what are some of those attributes that you learned about yourself that you would say, well, I never thought I could do this, but I did it? What could you share with the audience that would make them understand if you get to this point, and some of you probably will, think about these moments, but here's what you could do to get out of that rut?
Yeah, for me, it was taking on one scary thing at a time. I had a friend of mine years ago, after my divorce, and I was going through a lot of hard, mental challenges coming out of that. She had this uh, theory that if you tackle hard physical things, it helps you overcome the hard mental things. And I thought, that's interesting, like yeah, I'll give that a try. Why not? So we did. And the first thing she took me to do was rock climbing. And I did not like rock climbing, but but I did it, and I tried it. And the second thing she had me do was go surfing. And I never had any desire to go surfing. I'm not really a very good swimmer, and I don't like cold water. But I have to tell you, being out on that board in Santa Cruz, out in the middle of the ocean, looking up at West Cliff, something shifted, and I was like, "This is awesome." And I can't say that I'm a surfer. I'm still a complete novice, but I've been a handful of times and I've taken lessons. So I hope to do more of that. But what I loved about this was this tackling of scary things. And that's what I did with my own business was I tackled one scary thing at a time. And this started about 6 months ago. It was last summer. So it's pretty recent that I started really um, focusing on building my business. And the first thing I did was do a 90-day outreach plan, which it was just something I made up and committed to myself, which was to reach out to 5 people in my network per day for 90 days. And I did that. And probably 2 months in, one of those conversations turned into a client. So that was super exciting. And that was the proof point that this is working. The second thing I did about a month after I started the 90-day outreach plan was I started to put myself out there more. I started to write blog posts and post on LinkedIn more. About a month after that, the third thing I did was go out and start going to networking groups, like physical meet in person networking groups, and started meeting people that way. And then the fourth thing I did was started public speaking, and I did that webinar I mentioned. And so that to me is, th- maybe that's a little aggressive, is like, these big four scary things in a 4-month time frame, but that's not the point. It's like just picking one thing that you can do and just start doing it. And the thing I will say about every single one of those things that really scared me and I had a lot of fear around, they do get easier once you start doing them. And so that has been super encouraging, because just once you start doing it, it's just like, okay, this isn't a big deal. I'm getting in conversation. I'm going to this networking group. I'm introducing myself. I'm, getting on this podcast with Rick, and I'm just going to pretend I'm in conversation with Rick, not think about anything else. Right. That sort of thing. So that's what's really helped me.
That's great. You said a lot of things so far, and a lot to digest there. But I guess for someone who eventually is going to fall into this role of, gosh, I had a career, now it's gone, and the world is completely different. The landscape is very fierce. If you told them to go to the whiteboard and say, look, okay, you've been out of work 3 or 4 months, nothing's panning out. I know you talked about your 90 plan and you mentioned a lot of good nuggets there, but if you had to tell them, look, here's a quick plan of what to do, what would be some of those attributes of here's what you need to start doing, such that you can then get a sense of, okay, I have a plan and I have to stick with it, but this will get me going. And I guess get my mind off of like, well, today was just a complete zero. Now what do I do tomorrow? What might that be? Maybe some, 3 or 4. Start doing at least these, and then, as you say, giddy up.
Exactly. The very first thing I would tell people to do, and this goes for people that are more introverted as well, because I have talked to some friends that are just like, yeah, I'm not really comfortable getting out there and going to networking groups and things like that, is like, just try to get in conversation with people that you do know, right? Like, write out 10, 15 people, former bosses, anyone who liked you, like former bosses, former coworkers, whatever, and just ask them for a coffee chat. And again, it can be in person or over Zoom. That part doesn't matter. But that, I think, is more comfortable for people, right? Is just reaching out and saying, hey, like, would you be up for connecting? And if they're people that knew you and liked you, they're going to be super happy to hear from you. They're going to be like, really grateful that you reached out. So that's the easiest place to start. And then from there, I would say, try to join some networking groups or, various online groups. There's so many people out of work. There's so many people that are in the exact same position as you are. And just to have that community of people, it can be a Slack group. It doesn't matter. But it can be so, it really helps when you feel like you're not alone in this, right? That there are other people in the same spot, and then you can kind of bounce ideas off each other and maybe get together as a group or whatever. There's a lot of groups out there that exist like that. So um, that would be another thing that I would recommend, is just, again, just trying to get in conversation with people, and then once you've done that, start expanding to people you don't know, but people that are in the same position as you. And then, lastly, it's like, I guess, really think about, maybe, take a journal out or something and start jotting down, the things that you're interested in doing, the things that you're good at doing, right? And really start brainstorming, so that you can be open to all opportunity that comes along. I think that's really important, because at the end of the day, none of us have a crystal ball of where this is going to land. I say I'm not looking for full-time work, but if somebody hit me up about a full-time job, yeah, I would absolutely listen to the opportunity, because I didn't know I was going to be here right now running my own business and trying to really build something. So how do I know that I'm not going to go back into corporate America and find a dream job there? I think anything's possible. And so just being open to that. And I think if you just start writing those things down and thinking through them, that can kind of get you in that open, mindset space.
Sure. And I think with what you just telegraphed there and ways to interact with other people who are kind of in the same boat, I think it would demonstrate to a future employer that, well, this person just didn't sit there and feel sorry for themselves. Sure, it's tough, but they took steps to at least keep their skills fresh, interaction with other people. And it would strike me as, hey, here's someone, even though when everything is kind of in the ditch, they're still fighting. That's what I want in an employee, not someone who says, well, just give me what I want. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to, grab it by the rope, so to speak, and you have to stand up for yourself. No one's going to help you. And that's what makes those moments tough. And I think for some people, it's that emotional sequence of disappointments that I think really hurt people to feel like, God, what's the point? No one wants me. You got to erase that thought and realize someone out there does want you, but you're going to have to fight a little harder for it. And today's world, it's going to get worse.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And, that would be, I guess the fourth thing on the list would be, honing those skills. There's so many free resources out there to take coursework, to learn from others. So yeah, I definitely think, you see people all the time adding certifications and different things over LinkedIn. And yeah, I think that does make a difference. And it also keeps you busy and keeps your mind active, like you said.
Mm-hmm. So as you've been going through this journey of yours thus far, since you've kind of started your own entrepreneur business, what did you find to be the most empowering moment that told you, you know what, it's going to be tough, but I discovered things about myself, and by God, I'm going to make it. Was there any moment in your life that hit you?
Yeah, I would say I went to this event in New York in September. It's called Women Impact Tech. And I had been to the event previously in San Francisco as a sponsor with one of my last companies. And the event was high quality. I was very impressed by it. And so, I went out there online as I was, kind of moving into my next scary thing to tackle. And, I was looking for different events that I could attend. And I was like, gosh, I wonder if that Women Impact Tech group is still around. And they were. And of course, I had just missed the San Francisco event. And so I looked into the New York event and I started to figure out, what would this cost me to go? Like in terms of airfare, you know, accommodations, ticket price, meals, transportation, all of that. And I mapped it all out and I hemmed and hawed on this for weeks. Um, just because when you're working with a limited cash flow, it's hard to say, I should spend this money. But after really weighing the options, I decided, I think the total cost was just over $1,000. I was going to use miles. I was going to stay in a cheaper hotel. I was really trying to figure out how I could do it on a budget. And that's pretty good for New York, right? And
Yeah.
so right in Times Square too. And so I just decided that it's the worst case scenario is I come back feeling super inspired and energized and ready to like push through to the next level. And best case, maybe I get a, interview opportunity or I get, a new client lead or whatever. Because at this time I was still open and considering full-time work. And I did go to this event and it was super energizing and super inspiring. And I met so many amazing women. And I also picked up a client there. And yeah, I ended up talking to somebody at their booth. They were sponsoring the event. And I ended up talking to the CEO and just vibed immediately. And I came back and we stayed in conversation. And, I started that job just a few months ago as a fractional CMO. And it's been fantastic. And so that was a pretty pivotal turning point for me, was making that bet on myself, listening to my gut and my intuition and just going for it. And worked out way better than I could have imagined, right? I got worst case and best case scenario. So that was cool.
I think that proves the point that by interacting with people, going to groups of people to kind of discuss, hey, we're all in the same boat. Let's have a conversation over coffee. And someone may be talking to you and they say, wait a minute, didn't you say you had a degree in marketing? And say, oh, and what's the degree in? Cybersecurity. He said, oh, I know someone who's looking for someone like that. So, it's one of those off chances that it could happen. But I think that's where people, I think, sometimes miss the point of networking and getting out there and having, you got to pay your dues to, reinvent yourself again. But sometimes you just never know that the next person you talk to may be the door that opens up for you. And I think that's where some people, rather than being introverts, it's like you have to get out of that shell, because if you don't, you're not going to get back in the race again.
Totally agree. I have a good friend and former coworker who had these most amazing stories that were so inspiring to me. So he got laid off, I think, earlier this last year, and he went out on his own. He's in the video multimedia space. And he told me this story that he was selling some end tables on Facebook Marketplace and went to meet the person who was going to buy these end tables from them in his driveway. And he ended up getting in conversation with this person. And now he works. She's one of his clients, and he works a couple days a week for her, because they ended up just saying, so what do you do? And da 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 da, right? And then he had another story where he was at his son's doctor's appointment, sitting in the waiting room, sitting next to this person next to him. Same thing. They just start chitty chatting and saying, what do you do? And now this guy is a renowned photographer in the Bay Area, and he started working for him. And those two stories blew me away at the power of conversation and connection and being open to conversation. So I love those stories, and they remind me all the time to just be open-minded and be present and get in conversation as much as you can.
Have other people come to you as of late, in the conversations you've had, like through LinkedIn, your podcasting, where you offer this kind of insight to them as to well, this is what I've been going through, here's what I've learned. Let me pass it on to you, pass it forward, so to speak.
I shared this a lot. I definitely shared it in the webinar that I did, the Going Out on My Own webinar. And I mention this to people all the time. And I feel like even my clients, a lot of the stuff that I do in terms of advising and some of the recommendations I make are really back to the basics around, a lot of it is sales enablement. It's how do you get in conversation? How do you create leads? Because sales can be a long game. It's a relationship game, right? And there's a lot of these great books out there that people continue to talk about that go back to those basics, that, sales is really about getting in conversation with people and building those relationships and maintaining those relationships over time, and being in service to others. And so, I talk about this a lot, and it's amazing how many people and companies are looking for that silver bullet. And, it doesn't exist. You gotta do a lot of different things. There is no silver bullet to just all of a sudden the leads start pouring in, right? But, one of the levers is definitely going back to basics and just building relationships, doing the exact things I'm doing in my own business.
So with the clients you've been working with thus far, how has AI come into the picture?
Yeah, it's completely integrated, in everything, everyone is using it in business that I'm working with, and I am using it every day with everyone that I'm working with. And so, it's a companion, right? It's helping speed things up and deliver things more quickly. I don't think anybody right now is necessarily seeing it as a complete replacement. But we're all seeing it as just accelerating what we're able to do, right? And so, even when I was doing that pilot project for that cybersecurity client a year and a half ago, AI was so useful to me to come up to speed on that industry and their product and, the market that they played in. So just the learning you can get, so quickly can just really accelerate the speed to which you're able to produce, content
Right.
and deliverables.
Yeah, I think it's becoming one of those skills, like it or not, everyone's going to have to adapt to it. And I think rather than fighting it, uh, learn it as much as you can, because I would think having that skill set, at least having a very fundamental understanding of how AI could work well, say in marketing or in finance, and be able to explain it in such a manner that, okay, now I think I'm getting the picture of what AI can do for our sector of the business. Because I think some people are beginning to wonder, like, well, everyone's just going hog wild on this, but do they really understand how to utilize it to their advantage? And I think you have various arguments to that end. I mean, I don't know what you've experienced thus far with your clients, if they've had, situations like that, like, well, how do we implement it? How do we incorporate it? What's really going to get us there by using AI?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think, everyone's, for the most part, people have taken on the content piece with it, right? That
Mm-hmm.
one's pretty clear that, yeah, it can help you create content, particularly, best if you're able to feed it your own perspective, and point of view. Um, and then you can use it, to kind of massage it and train it so it can understand your voice. Obviously for editing, it's fantastic. But I think, areas where I've dabbled in is really even on, building out outreach lists, scraping information from the web, using it to build out spreadsheets. And I mean, I built out a whole dashboard when I talked about my 90-day outreach plan. I used AI to customize that whole thing so that, if I updated a row of the spreadsheet that I contacted this person, it would change the color of that row. It would add content in one of the other columns. It would put a notification on my calendar. I had it do a bunch of things. And
Right.
so, some of the automation pieces that you can use are really, really powerful as well. So that's what I found that have really sped up things from kind of like almost like a back office standpoint.
Sure. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Um, what tangible piece of advice would you offer to someone, extroverts, introverts, that, you know, if you can make it through life without having to go through these pitfalls, hey, you're golden. But for most of you, it's going to happen. And the technology is now making it even tougher. And what you've been through, what you've learned, what would you pass on to them as this is what worked for me? It may not work for you, but here's something you need to understand going forward, that when it does, you really need to take to heart the following.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that kind of comes to mind for me is that it's not all been an easy path. It hasn't all been, puppies and roses, so to speak. I had a lot of dark days, a lot of fear-based thinking, scarcity mindset, and that can happen a lot for people that, lose their job and then they're in this difficult, market for sure. But that also happened after that when I'm like in business for myself, trying to figure this thing out. And so just to normalize that a bit, that because I think, a lot of times we just see what's out there online. We just see, if you went out to my profile, you'd probably think, oh, wow, Tracy's doing great. But, there has been a lot of tough times, scary moments where I've had to dig deep. And so just to stay the course and let yourself kind of feel and go through those emotions and know that that's okay. And then just, keep pushing forward. Every day is a new day. For me, my only lasted a few days, luckily at a time. not months and months. So that I was able to kind of pull myself out of it after a few days. But, when you're in it, it feels like it's lasting forever. And so, it's just really about staying the course and just, picking up and keep going, not, chastising yourself about, what didn't happen, what you didn't do, your expectations where you wanted to be, just keep going. And so, putting one foot in front of the other. And like, if you didn't do the thing you said you were going to do, if I committed to 90-day outreach plan and I said 5 people a day and then I didn't do it yesterday, big deal. Okay, do 10 today. Okay, like just keep going, right? Well, and I definitely miss days. And then I would try to make up for it. So yeah,
No, that's great. That's great. I mean, I think people need to hear that and, understand that. I think for me, like when I went through that time period, I had moments where, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I cried because I thought, gosh, nothing is working. But, when I look back on it, and I guess I could say that now, it made me more of a stronger individual than I realized. Like, it's going to be tough. You know what? You're going to make it. And then when I finally did make it, I thought, okay, now I know I need to do next time, God forbid if it does happen, but you have to know that there is a way out of it. It may take a while, a long while, but you will get out of it. You'll find a solution, whether you get back into the corporate world or you like, you know what, I'm going to start my own business. And I know some people who have done that and they're far happier for it. So
yeah.
I think there's many ways you can look at this.
Yeah, I've
So
heard that the real change and transformation in life comes when you're in the muck, in the
yeah,
darkness, right? I think we can all relate to that. And even though, but that's where you see those big changes. So you got to have kind of like that crux, that hard point that you hit in order to rise above it. So there are good days, light days, exciting, energizing, motivating days ahead, right? For all of us.
wow, so many categories there. Okay. Well, Tracy, I usually end the conversation with what I called some questions that are kind of spontaneous, and I shared them with you. So I'm going to dive into the first one. What was the best live concert you ever attended, and why?
This one is so hard for me, Rick. If you knew how much live music I see on a weekly basis. Um, yeah, I love live music. I love festivals. So I thought about this and I'm just gonna have to go with my very first concert, um, which was Skid Row. And
Huh.
so that was also my first CD. It was at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago. And yeah, it was pretty awesome watching Sebastian Bach climb up, the speakers and whatever. When I don't know how my parents let me go to that concert, but anyway, it was fantastic.
Oh, that's good to hear. Wow. What do you wish you had more time to do?
Probably hobbies and activities. I mean, I would love to have more time to go golfing or play tennis or things like that. Those have definitely fallen by the wayside as I have dug in on the business.
No mountain climbing?
No, definitely no mountain climbing. Surfing, though, surfing, yeah. For sure. Like those 3 hobbies, oh, that would be so great if I could do that regularly.
Sure.
I would love that.
What was your first paying job?
My first paying job, I mean, technically I was a babysitter for a long time, but the first like real paying job was I was a shampoo girl. Like, yeah, which is such a weird thing. I think it was like 15 or whatever, maybe 16. I think it was 15. But such a weird thing to have a 15-year-old girl do is like you're spraying like hot water on somebody's head and you're like, is that too hot? Like to ask them, and you're like, is that, it's just like such an odd position. So yeah, I was the shampoo girl.
Like, oh, you must have had some days.
I know. I'm like, sorry. They're like, oh, like, cause I'd get them in the eye or the ear or
Oh.
whatever. And, so you'd be like, sorry. And they're like, yeah, they were always very forgiving, but still, like, it was so uncomfortable.
Oh my God. Okay, so if your two sons wrote a book about you, what would the title be and why?
This made me laugh because I I don't think it. So I think they would title it, if they were to write it right now, they would title it "My Mom, the Cornball."
The cornball.
Yeah, that's like the new term. Like, I don't know if this is like, yeah, the teenagers, they're using the term cornball. Yeah. Maybe in 10 years they'd write something a little more like that would make me feel good, right? But yeah, no, we're in teenage years. So yeah, they are like, "Mom, you are such a cornball."
Well, I think that kind of comes from the heart too.
Yeah, right.
I know.
Maybe a little bit.
Okay, last question. And I've gotten some very interesting responses to this one. What would you attempt to do if you knew you just couldn't fail?
Yeah, this one is tough.
This has to be mountain climbing.
Oh man. Um, yeah, I don't know. Okay, when I think on the business side of things, I think I would I would start my own company, like product company of some sort, and like build something from the ground up. That's what I think of there. On the personal side, I don't know. I've always wanted to live abroad, live in Italy. I would love to do that for a couple years or something like that. So yeah, those are the two things that come to mind for me.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
been to Italy, I've been to Portugal, and in both those two countries, I just found that the people who live there, they know how to relax.
Right.
I mean,
The culture's
it's
so
it's it,
different.
it's
Right.
amazing. It's I discovered that dinner doesn't start at 5 o'clock; it starts at 9.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, it was beautiful times. Both times that I went there with my wife. So so listen, I really want to thank you for taking the time to share your journey with the people who are out there who probably have been through these moments, and hey, they may contact you as a result of this. And I hope they do. But and also the people who have not been through it. And, hopefully, some of them won't go through this, but unfortunately some will have to. It's just, luck of the draw, so to speak. But I
Yeah.
want to thank you,
Thank
for taking that
you.
time.
I
So, I mean,
appreciate it. So good to see
oh,
you.
no worries. Same here.
And yeah,
And
I'm happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn, or reach out if anybody wants to talk that, is in this same position or thinking about going out on their own. I'd love to connect. So
okay.
thank you, Ray.
So I always put the show notes out with the transcript once I put it onto my podcast website. So, okay with you if I provide them
Yeah,
your LinkedIn? Okay. Be
absolutely.
happy to
Yeah.
do that, help you get contacts. And to the audience out there, I thank you for listening and taking the opportunity to listen to Tracy Pullman. I think she had a very interesting story to share with all of you. And to that, we'll see you soon and take care.